This episode is powered by Act Now Education. Go to www.actnoweducation.com for free comprehensive educational resources and opportunities for active duty, veterans, military spouses, and children.
Balance. And I tell people and veterans all the time, because I helped start a program here in San Antonio for veterans with PTSD, depression, TBI, stuff like that. Drawing and painting and doing like just anything that gets them out of bed, gets them off the meds, get them starting looking at their surroundings, not as a threat, but they start seeing different things that really kind of lifts them up. And I'm like, it doesn't matter if you're playing guitar, if you're wood carving, if you're making mud pies in the backyard, if it fulfills you and it makes you your little heart smile, you got to do it.
Warriors fall in. It's time for formation. Today, we're joined with an Air Force veteran who's going to share his own career transition into the world of sculpturing and explain how he's been giving back to the military community as well. And if you'll remember correctly, we had the honor of interviewing a Grunt Style artist and San Antonio Muralist named Ghost just a few months back, who also did some incredible work. Well, today we're going to learn all about our Air Force veteran, Cody Vance's military life, his transition experience that landed him as a highly talented artist. And we're going to also explore some of the lesser known insights into the realm of art and sculpturing. Cody, I want to thank you for joining us on the Morning Formation today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's going to be a good little trip.
Definitely, man. I'm looking to go down this journey with you, man, as far as how you made the jump or transition into the world of sculpturing, because I know even for myself back in high school, I was really interested in art and kind of had my dreams shut down. Kudos to you, man. I mentioned that to Ghost as well. I said, I really envy folks who sort of follow their creativity and their dreams into the next level, which is where you're at right now. So it's an absolute honor to have you on the podcast today. And just to start things off, Cody, would you mind explaining to us why you decided to join the Air Force out of all the other branches?
It's a strange kind of way that things work out, but I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, in an area called the South Valley. Very agricultural, very old family residents, generations living together and things like that. But there wasn't a lot of infrastructure for like jobs for young people coming out of high school. And I lived in a pretty deep part of the South Valley, all the way down to the Bosque and through Isleta Pueblo Reservation and into closer to Los Lunas. And that kind of bounced around a lot. But there wasn't really a whole lot of job things. But I did through high school. There used to be a program, I don't know if it still exists or not, but it was called DECA. And it was to help you build and learn business acumen. And I got a job in a department store as a senior and worked there for about a year. Then we all found out that this big monster called Walmart was coming in and buying the store, and we all got laid off. I had no idea what Walmart was. So, 2 or 3 days later, after all this really transpired and we all got down, I was downtown Albuquerque up in the city, which is it's about a 40-minute drive. It's a pretty long hike for where I was living. Just kind of wondering what my next step is going to be. I'm walking around the city and just relaxing through the day. And I turn a corner and there's all the service representations, all the offices. And I kind of looked at it and it never really dawned on me, even though I've got a lot of military presence in my family. I'd always wanted to be an artist, and I didn't think those two connected. But, I started looking at them and how I really came up with it was almost like a coin toss. I'd known family members who'd been in the Marines, uncles had been in the Navy, Army presence, but I didn't know any of us who had been in the Air Force. And that was just kind of the way I've always been, whatever else anybody else has kind of done. I've just kind of walked my own path and followed my feet, which is one of my big kind of mantras. I don't try to put too much stock in or try to plan too much, because I just love going day by day. And I really just kind of walked right into the office and told him that I wanted to look into signing up and that I'd love to be a graphic artist. And he was like, you can, but that's about a year and a half waiting list. And I was like, nah, I need to go now. There's nothing for me where I'm living. I gotta go. So 3 months later, I was coming here to San Antonio, and doing the whole thing, getting your head shaved, getting yelled at, and the whole fun trip thing, and then went on to Germany from there. But that's really as simple as it was. It just like a real quick decision and just move on.
Yeah, I hear a lot of stories like that, man. Like when I asked my buddy the other day why he joined the Marines, he said it was because of Full Metal Jacket. And so it's funny how it's rarely this ever like really deeply enriched research process. It's just kind of like I joined the Army because my dad was in the Army. Like I did not look at any other branches. And I just said, hey, Army or nothing. And it's funny how you just walked around the corner and saw all these different branches, these recruiters lined up, and you just picked one, I guess, right? Or or did you gravitate towards the Air Force specifically?
Just for that reason, because that was the only one I knew that nobody I knew had ever been in. And I didn't know anything about the Air Force. I'd never even really contemplated it. I knew they wore blue uniforms. That was really it. And they flew, but that was it.
Right.
And, but yeah, they told me there was a year and a half waiting list, and I said, no, I need to go now. And they said, well, here's some jobs that are available. What are you into? And I said, I want to go anywhere in the world. Mm-hmm. I want to be outside. I just want to just play. I want to be able to hop and pop.
So what?
Go ahead.
So what job did they end up setting you up with, man?
Security police, MP.
Oh man. Okay.
They got
all
me.
right.
But at the time, I didn't care.
Right.
I was so just ready to explore and travel. And you could have told me I was going to be slinging mud, and I probably would have done it, because that's just the way I've always been. I don't really care about that kind of thing.
I had a conversation with someone recently. I had a conversation with some parents and a high schooler, and he was all like, well, I want to join the Marines. I want to join the Marines. And I was straight up honest. I said, well, what the hell do you know about the Marines? And what do you know about any other branch? You know nothing. And so at the end of the day, do your research, because I hear too many times folks like even myself just joined a branch because of X. And it really probably wasn't the best. I probably should have done my research and seen like what other opportunities are available based off my ASVAB score, because I enlisted originally and then I went officer. But yeah, so pivoting to the artistic side, at what age did you start sculpting? And would you mind talking about how you decided to start doing that, and then doing sculpturing, and then what's the tie-in to the military, to the military experience, I guess? Did you do it while you were in uniform?
I did, and I like a lot of creatives. As kids, we start out with whatever we can draw. It's the most natural thing you can do, draw, whatever. And some, like you're talking about, you kind of got out of it, but you're now doing a creative podcast, which kind of scratches that itch.
Right.
But I did paintings and drawings and just about anything else to a more or less certain degree, although my entire life. I didn't get into sculpting until about 2008, because I was just burnt out on doing 2D work. In the military, I had done murals at different locations all over the world. I had done paintings and drawings. I became to be known doing a bunch of portrait work late in my career when I was getting ready to retire. Just quick pencil stuff from downrange type stuff. And I just was getting burnt out, because it's one of those things where we will do a creative process, and at least for myself, I will immerse myself in it. I'll try to learn everything about it if it really interests me. And I'll work that for a while, and then I'll hit a wall that I'm just like, okay, it's either time to evolve or do something else. And I do that all the time. And it started really heavily in 2008. And I was in my 40s when I really kind of discovered what I was supposed to be doing and what really fulfilled me. So I got into stone carving through a little nonprofit and just got hooked immediately. And I've been doing that almost primarily for 13 years. And I still do other things like painting and drawing, and I'll experiment with other things like stained glass and ceramics and stuff, which ceramics and oil-based clay type stuff is what I'm getting more and more heavy into to do bronze work and stuff like that. But I'm just one of those types. If it's just 5 minutes a day, I'm going to do something creative. I have to. It's just the way I'm built. And I feel that it just creates a great balance in my head, a great life balance. And I tell people and veterans all the time, because I helped start a program here in San Antonio for veterans with PTSD, depression, TBI, and stuff like that. Drawing and painting and doing like just anything that gets them out of bed, gets them off the meds, get them starting looking at their surroundings, not as a threat, but they start seeing different things that really kind of lifts them up. I'm like, it doesn't matter if you're playing guitar, if you're wood carving, if you're making mud pies in the backyard, if it fulfills you and it makes you your little heart smile, you got to do it. And don't let anybody stop you, because it's part of being human. It fulfills our soul. So it's really good stuff. It's very strong.
Yeah. Have you experienced or witnessed a lot of PTS symptoms get alleviated through some of the, I guess, teachings that you've done, or some of the volunteer work that you've done with sculpturing specifically?
Yeah. I don't have PTSD personally. Suffered depression, suffered other things.
Right.
I lead a pretty balanced life, but I think it's because I've kept artwork in my life this whole time and really worked at it. But I've witnessed some pretty strong turnarounds from some of the veterans we brought into the programs. We had a pilot program that we did about 6 years ago, and that one was just completely life-changing for me, because I knew art and a creative process was powerful, but I'd never seen it physically change somebody so quickly. And it just blew me away. And to this day, every one of those people, there was 15 of us in the entire workshop. There was 5 educators, 5 artists, and 5 veterans, plus a couple of program managers who wonderful, wonderful guidance. We're all still in contact and close and say, hey, and, because it glued us immediately. And, you've seen guys and gals come off the line. 24 hours, they're back at home base. They don't know how to deal with that. It's a familiar yet unfamiliar territory for them. They don't know how to talk, and it's just really weird dichotomy. And we got some of those guys coming in. Some of them have been out for quite a while, and some had just come out of the sand. And they come in, they got their hats low, they're scanning, they're sitting, they're just watching, backs to the wall, all that good stuff. And our program managers were just brilliant. The first thing they did after they kind of introduced and said what we were going to do, he brought out these large sheets of paper and crayons and said, outline your hand and then draw whatever you want on it. And it took literally 45 seconds or so for the smiles to come up, the laughter to start, people start taking on sheet and looking around and saying, hey, and just getting into it, because there's something about the creative process, especially painting and drawing or something like that, and especially something tactile like a crayon, because that smell takes you right back to a kid. Your 6-year-old opens up and it trumps anything you got going on. It backdoors it, because, we've all seen that little meme that the biggest, baddest dude in the world is going to sit down with that 4-year-old if she wants to have a tea party or not.
Right. Right.
That's very true. So when that person is able to bring and let that child out, there's nothing like it, man. I had goosebumps and chills just looking around that room that day.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love it. And if anyone out there is listening right now and they've been thinking about getting into, some type of art, whether it be sculpturing or painting or muralist or whatever, what's your advice to them? Like, if they're looking to make that first step, would you suggest that they sign up for a group maybe, or try to get some type of formal training? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think everybody's going to have a different outlook on it. They may just jump right into it and find a group to go for. My advice, because I think that human contact is something that's very, very needed. And in a creative environment like that, there's something completely different that we're not used to, and it's disarming, but in a good way. Mm-hmm. So I would suggest also going out and looking for nonprofits that teach that kind of stuff. Community schools, I used to go to one of the night classes here in one of the community schools just to learn like printmaking. And you can but they've got classes for everything. If they're undecided of what they want to do all of them. We all have this thing that number one, we have to find something that we think we're going to be good at, because we have to be good at it.
Right.
No, you don't. There's so many things to learn, and being Picasso or Michelangelo is the last thing you should have on your mind, but that's what we all gravitate to. And that's what kind of turns people off, because it doesn't come out exactly what they think it should have. Just play with the process, experiment, try to break it, and then you're going to learn stuff. But I would legit look out and get the community nonprofits, get in there, volunteer with them, to learn all that stuff. Most of them, the really good ones, they'll teach you anything. And there's, most creative communities are really wide open. They've got so many people with expertise that are just dying to teach you. If you're really honest and you're showing that you're legit about it, they're going to tell you anything they want. They're going to teach you, and they're going to bust your butt, and they're going to put their arm around you, and at the end of the day, it's just, there's nothing better than being worn out, especially stone carving.
Yeah.
Your joints are throbbing and you're laying in bed, and that's like.
So yeah, man. So I kind of want to get into that next. But just to comment on what you're talking about specifically, when it comes to, in the beginning, you're probably going to suck at whatever it is that you do. You're not going to break out a Michelangelo piece right off the bat. Right. And that was the journey for me with podcasting and doing content creation. And maybe someday I'll share some of my first videos that I ever did, and they're awful and they're hidden right now on YouTube, to be broken open for laughs at some point in time in the future. But even in podcasting, when I first started out, horrible. And I expected it to be horrible, and I expected for people to be critical about it. And that was fine. I feel like I'm obviously better than I was a year and a half ago or so. So don't be afraid to start out and be very raw, be very rough. I give people that advice all the time when people are like, well, I'm interested in doing content creation or podcasting. And they're like, what do you suggest? And I'm like, you got to hit record and record yourself. But what am I going to record? I don't know. Just record yourself talking. Right. I mean, that's the first step. Just simply do it,
Right. Especially if you run a laptop, just walk around the house and talk to the house. It's an exercise of getting comfortable with your equipment. That's really all it is.
And if I could just tell you the amount of takes that I've done, just doing content creation, or even trying to do a interview podcast on just me, like early on, I did that, and I had to do it several times before I got it right. So yeah, but I understand that that's part of the journey, man. Everyone starts out like that. And, you mentioned earlier about being sore when you were chiseling out some stone. When you first started into the world of art, what were some lesser known things? Maybe they were stereotypes or misleading thoughts that you had before you became such a polished artist that you are today.
Oh, probably a little.
I mean, you already mentioned one when it came, because people don't understand that when you're hitting that chisel and you're hitting it with a hammer, that vibration and everything is going through your body too. So it takes a toll on you as well, right?
That's right. And if you're thinking you're going to get it through an entire sculpt of something not breaking, forget that notion. It's gonna let you know how it wants to be. The stones that we do, our sculpts are great, but they come straight from Mother Earth, and they're millions upon millions of years old. They don't like to be pounded on, and some are more than others. Some you can get away with a lot of aggression.
So how frustrating is that when you're trying to sculpt something and make it just perfectly, edged and round, and then it pops off? I mean, you got to keep moving on, right? You have to decide, okay, now where do I go from here?
Right. Initially, it broke my heart. It pissed me off. I would throw tools. I would just, I was not fit to live with for a good 10 or 15 minutes.
Right.
But anymore these days, if one breaks, it's number one, it's my fault because I know better. And I am an aggressive carver. I use a lot of power tools just because it saves my joints and stuff from all the pounding stuff. But, I look for flaws. Sometimes you're not going to see them. I've had ones where I'm in the final sanding. I'm in like 500 or 600 grit, and I've only got 500 or 600 or 5 or 6 more grits to go till it's done. And I come and I touch it and it breaks in half. And it just had a flaw in it that I didn't realize was a flaw because this particular stone had a lot of striations and things in it. So it happens. So yeah, what do? You cuss under your breath, think dirty thoughts or like that, but there's really nothing you can do except learn from trial and error and talking to your friends and going online and finding out, and you figure out ways to fix it. 9 times out of 10, if you've got a lot of stone mass, you can get some small threaded stainless steel rod and some good epoxy and work that back in there. And it's totally sound because, you can talk to any woodworker or anybody else who uses the good glues. The glue joint's going to be stronger than the mother material itself anyway.
Right.
And epoxy is really good if you get the good stuff because it doesn't yellow and get kind of weird with age and stuff like that. But yeah, the breakage, that's a normal thing. And that's, I get a lot of people asking me, so what were you thinking while you were sculpting? I was like, don't fucking break. Just don't fucking break. I'm just, and it's just it's a thing. Now I don't worry about it too much when it happens because it's going to happen.
Yeah. So it sounds like sculpting and just art in general is not always frustration free necessarily, but is there anything else that folks may not know when they jump into something like this that they will learn quickly that they didn't quite realize or plan for when they take on such a hobby such as this?
Yeah, if they're looking to make a lot of money and set up a tent and you're going to get bought out and stuff like that, that is so rare. I can't even count the many people. You've got to understand that people are very fickle. They love your artwork. They may love the look, the feel of it, or anything like that. But when it comes to the price tag, when you get used to pricing it correctly as to your time, your experience level, and adjusting with your contemporaries who do similar work out there, they get sticker shock. But it's all about an education process as well on ourselves and with the customer, that when you buy a piece of one-of-a-kind art from an artist, talk to that artist, you get that story, you get that provenance, you learn where they came from and how they started everything with it. The artwork itself is one of the best investments you will ever buy, because if you take care of it, it will be in your family for generations and generations and generations. You'll have a museum piece in your home and be the envy of all your friends and family down the line because you had the insight and the foresight to buy artwork from your local artist. And you never know when that artist or where that artist is going to end up. They could become the next big thing, or they could stay where they're at. But you've got this gorgeous historical chronological timeline through art in your home. That's priceless. You can't put a dollar sign on that. We have to, because we want to sell it and we try to be fair. But at the end of the day, if you're gonna do the work, you need to be paid for the work, and that's usually the hardest thing for them. The other thing is just that it's a grind. If you really want to be a full-time paid artist, you got to be hustling, and 80% of your hustle has got to be online. It's got to be marketing. It's got to be selling yourself, because it's all about the story. And I'm horrible at that. I don't like telling the story. I usually don't have a story when I'm building things. And that's one of the things I'm kind of trying to get used to. Other people are brilliant at it, and you can tell because they sell.
Yeah. And if you don't mind, while we're doing this video portion of the podcast, I'm going to display some of your works that I see here on Instagram, just for the visual listeners and watchers out there that are going to be digesting this through YouTube, I'm going to be sharing some of your sculptures because they're absolutely amazing, man. Like,
Thank you.
I'm not sure, is it some of your sculptures that utilize is it like red clay?
Yeah, if it's like that reddish,
Right.
if it's the one I'm thinking about, they're an oil-based clay. It's called Chavant, and it comes in soft, medium, and hard and stuff. It's what most like bronze artists use, because then either a 3D scan can be made of it, or they can make a mold of it very easily and do the process to turn into bronze. But oil-based clay is really, really fun to work with and really good to start out with. And I've been talking to a couple of veterans who want to get into it, and I pushed them first to try air dry clay, just because it's the least expensive and it's the most bang for your buck, where you can see if that's something you like doing that kind of work. And you don't have to worry, you don't have to have a kiln, you don't have to put it in the oven, you just let it air dry, and you can manipulate it really well. If you're wanting to get more serious, there's plenty of schools that do and local economy nonprofits and companies that do wet clay, and you can learn how to do ceramics, throw on the wheel, do functional stuff and figurative, and build a coil and everything, and then go through the whole kiln and glazing process. And this last one, oil-based clay, you can work on it forever because it never dries out. It's wonderful material to play with. So if you're really, really just want to experiment and play and learn, go on YouTube and look up oil-based clay sculpture and stuff and see how they build the armature stuff. And you can come back to it many times. You can wad it up when you're done and start all over. And it doesn't cost you anything. After that first initial price of getting it, you're home free.
Right. That sounds awesome, man. Getting into it, as far as the details on how to get started, you're talking about all the different types of clay that you can get into, but overall, where would you say that your inspiration comes from?
That's a good question, because it kind of comes from anywhere. It comes from other artists. It comes from just walking down the street, and if I see a design that I really like, the funny thing about stone sculpture that I was not expecting, because I've been a figurative artist all my life. I've done portrait work and drawings and cartoons and illustration work for books and this and that.
Right.
But when I started carving the stone, I naturally started doing abstract work. And I tried to paint an abstract once or twice, something it didn't work in my head. But in a 3D sculpting in the round, as they call it, it made total sense. And all I wanted to do was start poking holes in that stone and twisting and turning it. And, I've got friends of mine say, man, it looks like you scooped that out of ice cream, or, you twist it like taffy and stuff like that. And that's kind of what goes on in my head. I'm just looking at that, what extreme positive and negative space and gravity and everything else, and stress and intensity that I can put on it. There's something about it that just hooks me hard. This new venture with the oil-based clay, I've kind of returned to more figurative because it just makes sense to me. But I know without a doubt that I'm going to be hitting abstract with it pretty soon.
That sounds fascinating, man. It sounds like it's sort of how I am with my podcast. I don't care what anyone says. This is an art, and podcasting itself, because when I go to edit, I have to, I don't know if you listen to my podcast, but at the beginning I find music and I find a sound bite out of that podcast to slam in the front to hook folks in. And I'm trying to think like an artist myself, like what sounds appealing to the mood and the emotions of what this person is saying. So in a sense, I kind of understand what you're saying with that.
It definitely is art. You're thinking about the big picture, and that's not something many people can do.
Yeah, definitely. And Cody, so far, where has your art been featured? Would you mind also talking about some of your accolades that you've accomplished so far?
Yeah, I'm kind of a weird bird in the sense that because I've had full-time job and really focus on that, I don't put my stuff out there a whole lot. Probably my two major things that I just completely keep paying me back in droves is when I retired, all the services, it doesn't matter which service branch you come from, they all have art programs. And with the Air Force, they allow you to donate the original works you did while you were on active duty, and they'll split the copyright with you. They don't care what you do with it. You can make posters, you can make calendars, you can make prints of it and sell them. They're cool with that because they have the original. And that's what I did. I donated, 33 original pieces to the Air Force Art program. So they're all in the Air Force Art catalog, and some of them hanging in the halls of the Pentagon, because that's where it's all housed.
Oh, wow.
All around that area. So get up on the 5th floor, the Air Force floor, they call it, and you might bump into one of mine or a couple of mine. I've had friends send me pictures, stuff like that. So that was a big kind of heady thing. It was one thing to have my stuff there and know that they accepted it. But then when I get friends of mine sending me pictures, that's
really cool.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. The other one that is just has, and I don't like the way I say it, it's paid me back, but that's kind of a thing, but it's meant so much to so many others. And it just, if I fell off a cliff tomorrow and stopped, I'd be content, because it was born out of a necessity, and something in it clicked when the doctors told me. The backstory is, back in 2008, I was E7 running a medical multimedia team, and we did forensic work. Photographers, videographers, we deployed everywhere. We covered the southern United States, going in, documenting fatalities or anything else going on that needed a forensic kind of documentation type stuff. Part of that, one of our big customer bases was behavioral health, and we'd done a lot of work for them, posters and whatnot. Well, one day, as this group had just picked up their products, they were leaving, and one of the guys stopped. He says, "Hey, you know what? I see your drawings and everything and your Kugeln stuff, and we always liked your work. If you ever come up with an idea, a visual idea that just speaks PTSD, depression, TBI, or anything like that, could you just kind of work with that and let us know what you got?" And me, I knew what PTSD, the term, meant. I didn't know what the reality meant. So we sat there and talked for about 10 or 15 minutes. At that time, back in 2008, what does that really mean? What are they finding out? What are they seeing come back from the different operational fields?
Right.
And he really just opened my eyes of what this really meant. And I'm one of those ones, if you start talking about an idea, my wheels just start going, and I start putting this stuff all together, which is kind of ironic on how this came out, because what I ended up drawing was a soldier, real kind of nondescript, had a very minimal battle rattle on him, but he was a jigsaw puzzle. And he had 2 pieces in his hand, and he had 2 vacant spots in here, because one of the things they said that really resonated with me is that they're these people who have experienced things or been traumatized by, an IED or whatever like that. Seems the rest of their life, they're trying to figure out where those pieces of them that they used to know are anymore. They're trying to put themselves back together and trying to find their footing and stuff. And that just exploded in my brain. And like a week later, I had them a full composite drawing, and it's blown up since then. It's been on magazine covers. Different behavioral health organizations have used it. Strong Start Research here, which is huge in San Antonio. It's part of a national consortium on PTSD research now, uses it. And one of the clay figures that I'm going to end up bronzing and try to get as a public monumental sculpture and park here in San Antonio, was based on that. So that would, if I had to name just one, it's hands down, that's what it is.
Wow. Yeah. And as you were talking, I was looking at your Instagram, and I saw that one early on. I saw the picture of you standing in front of the group of people with the painting, and it looks like you did. You also sculptured it as well, and that is a very unique piece. I love it, man.
Thanks.
And so, over the horizon, what's in store for Cody, Vance, and Vance Art Studio?
That's a good question. I've still got a little bit of way before I can retire again from my second job. And we kind of play around with the idea of having our home as a gallery. Who knows if that'll come to fruition, but regardless of what that kind of plan is, I will never stop playing. I'm going to find something new. I'm going to experiment, and I'm going to tweak things I'm already working on. I can't not do it. And anybody who comes and talks to me or emails me, I am their biggest cheerleader, because I want them to get into it, because I just know how powerful it is. I know how healing it is. We've had people who were ready to end it all, and we got them in the drawing and painting. We've got one that's going for his PhD now. It's going to be a teacher. It's the continuous stories like that, because they just needed that flashlight to show them that dark corner where the doorknob is. There is a doorknob, and you can open it and you can get the hell out.
Right. And some of the folks out there who have been listening to you talk about the nonprofits and some of the programs out there, would you mind naming some of those specifically? And maybe I can include those down in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. The number one to approach and contact would be Beal House Arts. And that's BIHLHAUSARTS. They're here in San Antonio. Fantastic organization. They've got like 17 different outreaches all through and they teach art from kids to seniors. That's been their primary thing. Dr. Kellen McIntyre, who runs that, she's the one that approached me a couple of years ago and said, we need to do something to build a program for veterans. And I think with your past experience with this other pilot program and being an artist and veteran yourself, I think you can help me out. And I was like, I'm in. The pandemic threw everybody for a group and a loop and on their heads and everything like that. But there's also been a little bit of ray of sunshine and certain things with that, because we were all face to face, and we had brilliant instructor teaching our veterans how to just go from the very basics of drawing a sphere, drawing a cube, up to having their first show, doing their first art show with their friends and comrades, and bringing their family out. And now, because of the pandemic, it's almost all online. So we were having veterans coming directly from our friends at Vetera here in San Antonio. And Vetera is kind of an immersion of healing and teaching you different tools to heal yourself and kind of reduce your stress when you know what's happening. They give you that insight of, okay, I'm starting to ramp up. Let me do some of these exercises to kind of chill out and stuff. And it's run by veterans. It only caters to veterans, and it's just fantastic people. They got in with Beal House, and we just put this thing together, and the first core group came in. We're all from there. They had to go through, several levels before they got to us. So we knew they knew what their triggers were, and they knew how to deal with it. And they were not afraid to share that with us too, so we could recognize it well. Of course, our instructors had to go through training, but the Beal House asked me to help them put together, and I got a great core of people, interchangeable stuff coming in and out with all these different experiences and things like that. And it's called Forward Arts, just like the command in a platoon, Forward Arts. And now they're online, and they can bring people in from anywhere on a Zoom and teach them how to do art. And it's building a community that's just spreading and spreading and spreading. It's a wonderful thing.
Wow. Yeah. I love it. It's a great place for someone to start who's looking to get into it and feel comfortable at the same time. Right. And, right. If you want to get that information, scroll down to the bottom in the show notes. If you're listening to this on a podcast, if you're watching it on YouTube, as always, go into my descriptions and you can find the link for that specific organization in itself. And Cody, I just want to ask you, if anyone out there has been listening to us so far, they'd like to connect with you, what's the best social platforms for them to do so?
Probably the best way is through an email. That way we can sit there and I don't mind writing back and forth, and I like email because I can kind of keep track of it. Plus I can really kind of explain what my thoughts are if they're asking me questions, or help guide or whatever. And then if it goes on from there and we evolve from there and come to a phone call or a Zoom or FaceTime or something like that, got no problem doing that. But that's usually the best way. That way I can kind of keep track, because it seems to have worked so well so far.
Yeah. And what's your email address, Cody?
The easiest one to get me is cody.vance@att.net.
Very cool. And then also, I see here you have a website. So let's drop your website. And then I know you're on Instagram, but what other platforms are you on?
Facebook, Instagram and website. That's really all. I just don't have time to do a lot of it because I'd rather be outside making dust. Yeah.
Right. And so for those out there listening, the website is www.vanceartstudio.com. And I'll make sure I include that down in the description and the show notes as well. So Cody, just to wrap things up, do you have any final pieces of advice for our military community that you didn't mention during this episode?
Just do it. You're not alone. That's probably the biggest thing. And I've heard our veterans say that they felt so isolated. I remember a lot of the stories when we were in high school, and all of us are growing up and going through the normal things of growing up. There's something in our head that tells us we're the only ones doing it. Nobody else is doing this. Everybody's looking at me. It's not true. It's the same thing when we're adults and we get out of uniform. We sometimes feel that we have something written on our forehead and everybody's kind of snickering by their hands. They're not. They're dealing with their own stuff. They don't worry about us unless we make it a reason for them to worry about us. And I say just get out there. It's hard for some people. Some people, just the thought of stepping outside their front door is excruciating. And I get that. If you're to that level, get with somebody, get with help. If it calls for medication, consider that. Seriously consider that. But get with somebody who knows how to give you the tools to get outside. I used to, when I was heavy into depression, I kind of equated it to being in a dark room and I don't know where the door is because I can't see any light. Finally went and talked to somebody and, they put me on a low dose of meds and it was just enough to take the edge off to where I could see that crack under the door. I was like, all right, there you are. And it's just one day by day. And I opened that door and I was like, I'm not fucking going back to that. And it's just a fight. And, we're used to fighting. We're used to going up against odds. That's the way I take it now. You're not going to get me anymore. I'm going to fight you because I know the tools now. And it's a creative process. It doesn't matter if it's leather, wood, blacksmithing, podcasting, writing, do it. And writing is really important because one of the big things that teaches us is reflection on ourselves. And that's what a lot of people don't know how to do. Take your normal day to day and write down what it is and look at it and say, okay, what does that really mean to me and about me? That's powerful stuff, man.
Right. Yeah. It's important to organize your thoughts. And then I like what you mentioned with the importance of connecting with folks, because I live in a very, very populated city, a small town called Los Angeles, but I connect with a lot of folks like yourself who live thousands of miles away much better than I do people around my own city block. So right. In today's world, in today's environment, there's really no excuse to find folks who have the same type of values and also have the same type of, I guess, hobbies and desires and goals as you as well. So it's great to connect with you, Cody. And I really appreciate you giving me your time today and telling your story overall to the listeners of the Morning Formation podcast. Thank you so much.
Hey, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for inviting me.
The honor is all on this end of the mic, as I always say. And for all the listeners out there, as always, I want you to stay tuned, stay focused, and stay motivated. Warriors, ball out. You've been listening to the Morning Formation podcast. I hope you found today's materials helpful and of value to your current situation. You can connect with me on Instagram at _morning_formation_podcast, or you can connect with me via email at theformationpodcaster@gmail.com. Also, I would like to thank my partners at Act Now Education for their support. Authenticity, community, and trusted is what you can expect from all members of the Act Now Education team. You can link up with them today and learn about some new free educational resources on their Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or at their website, actnoweducation.com. Whether today's show took you back to a nostalgic time or helped you think about tomorrow, thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you again. Stay safe and stay motivated. Warriors, fall out.